welcome back to the Lambda School Intro to Web Development course. This video is the second in our series on JavaScript classes. In this video, we're going to be talking about something on the class called the prototype. So in our last video, we talked about what a class was, how to create one, why we create one. Right? We use classes to as a template to create objects, a lot of objects that kind of all have the same exact style of data, right? In the last case, we used it, say we're building a database of users, and we want to create a new user for every user that comes on. Right? If we created a brand new object and wrote it from scratch, and wrote name, username, password, and whatever else we needed in there, it would take forever. We'd have a lot of unnecessary code. So we can use a class to create as many of those users as we want. And you're like, okay, well, creating 2 users is fine, but what if we were creating millions of users? That's the kind of power that these classes have and why we use them. So going in a little bit deeper is something on a class known as the prototype. So classes create a brand new object each time we create a class. Each time we create a new version of that class, and create a new user, that kind of thing. This includes creating new functions for every class method that we create on the object, for every method. So it creates a brand new function every time. So if we had 1 million users, we would now have 1 million functions. And they're all the same exact function. They all do the same exact thing, but we're creating 1 million of them if we have 1 million users. And creating functions takes memory. It takes a lot more memory than a string or a number or a Boolean does. So if we theoretically have multiple methods per class, in that case, I said we have 1 million users and we had one function, one method per class. What if we have 20? Now we're creating 20 million functions, right? Create thousands or millions of classes. The memory used is going to add up pretty substantially, pretty quickly, right? So to combat this, every class has a common repository for methods known as the prototype. So when you create a class, another thing that the new keyword does is creates this thing known as the prototype. This allows us to store functions or methods of that class where we only have to do it one time. We can create a single method that is stored in the prototype but will be given to every single class. So it's a pretty cool thing. It reduces the memory used substantially, right? And so instead of creating 20 million functions, we're now creating 20. Right? But it's given to every single one of those. Let's go take a look at it. So in this case right here, I have created a new class called the vehicle. So we're going to pretend that we are an online database of cars. Okay, we're just going to get some pretty basic info about these cars. We have a name, we have paint color, and this should be an array of colors, but we're going to use a single color for this. Engine size, and this could be an array of engine sizes as well. Seats, same, it could be multiple seats. But we're going to be pretty simple. So say we're creating this database of cars. Now think of every kind of car ever built. How many of them are there? Right? Every model, and I would say there are tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of them out there, right? So coming through here, I've kind of taken some stuff out. So I want to get you more used to seeing what a class actually looks like rather than with this equals. We know that the new keyword, when we call it, creates this for us. So I'm going to take that out. And we know that it also returns that object for us. So we're going to take the name, put it on a key called name. We're going to take the color. We're going to create a key called color, equal it to paint color, whatever we give it. The motor, we're going to say it's equal or assigned to the engine size up here. Capacity is going to be our seats. And then we're going to have a function that just returns a string. We're going to call that function info. And the info is just going to say, and if you haven't seen this type of string before, this is known as string template literal. or string interpolation. And if we use a backtick, this is not a single quotation mark, this is a backtick, it allows us to put variables right in the middle of the string instead of doing the whole, like, remember when our hello, we did hello, and we did plus this dot name. Instead of doing this, we can use backticks and get rid of all of those pluses, but we have to wrap our variable in this little unique syntax, which is a number sign and a curly bracket. So that's the same exact thing. So that's what we're doing right here. We're just returning a string that's going to say this vehicle is called the, and we're going to put the name in here. It seats, we're going to put the capacity, has a whatever the size motor is motor, and is available in this color, right? So we have an F-150. I just put F-150. I don't even drive an F-150. I don't know why I put this one pretty, but if you do, then cool. So we have a name, F-150. It's available in silver. It's got a V8 and it seats 5, right? So let's just go with F1. Oh, no, keys are a little off. We're going to do a little info on the F-150. Let's see what prints out. All right, we have this vehicle is called the F-150. It seats 5. It has a V8 motor and is available in silver. Cool. So our info is working. Let's create a new car. Let's go with Jetta. Well, and we're going to say Jetta. I don't even know what size motor a Jetta has, but we're going to say this one's available in green. I'm going to give it a V6. It might have an inline 6 or something like that. And I think the Jetta seats 4, probably 5 at most. Get rid of that. So now we can do Jetta info. And we see this vehicle is called the Jetta. It seats 5, has a V6 motor, and it's available in green. Cool, it's working, right? So we know how to create methods on classes. So we're going to do this times maybe 25,000 for every type of car that's ever been built. And cars, you know, there's a pretty limited number of styles of cars or models, but maybe it's 100,000 plus, I'm not sure. But, you know, imagine something like an email. It's like, if you have a Gmail address, imagine like how many different Gmail accounts are on there. Right, probably millions and millions and millions. But in this case, we're going to create as many of these as there are cars. And so what that's doing is that's actually creating this function in a place in memory 25,000 times. Okay, and so let's just say arbitrarily this is not how much it takes. Let's just say, just for the sake of it, it takes 1 megabyte. So 25,000 megabytes to store this function. And we're actually not changing it at all for any of these. It's the same exact function the entire way through. So, like I said, what happens is when we use new, we get the, we get this equals that. And then we get a return this. We also get this dot prototype equals an object. Okay, but this dot prototype is hidden from us. We can't see it when we see it on here, but it does do this. So what we do is we take any methods we have on this class and we apply it to the prototype after we've defined the class. Okay, so we're going to say vehicle. So the actual name of the class. Oh my gosh. We say dot prototype. And then we give it another dot and we'll say info. And we'll just copy paste this. We'll cut paste this, I should say. And remove that completely. So now what's happening is we are creating this function one time. It lives in this repository called the prototype, but it is available to every single instance of that vehicle class. So if we say new vehicle, that means F-150 still has access to it. Jetta still has access to it. Every vehicle is going to have access to it. Okay? And we can run it. And we'll see this vehicle is called the Jetta. And we'll just add a little in prototype. And look at that. Now you might be thinking, how does it know what this is referring to if it's only in this one space, right? We've only created it one time. How does it know what this is referring to? And this is where our this keyword gets a little bit more complex. But we just think back to the last video and the last lesson where we said whatever the name of the method is, where we're calling the method, so that's where we have those the key for the car. Kind of came around full circle for that one. Whatever is to the left of the dot, that is what this refers to. So this in here, when we call info, it's going to refer to that F-150. When we call it info on the Jetta, it's going to refer to the Jetta. Okay, and we can call it as many times as we want on as many different instances of this vehicle class, and it's going to call this function and it's going to give it the correct context of this. All right, this is known as the prototype, and it allows us to write a function one time in memory for as many classes as we want. And this is where classes really get interesting, and they start to really take form of their own. They're not just these plain basic objects. They are classes. They have a prototype. They, have different functionality than a regular object. And there is much more functionality to classes. We're not going to go much deeper than this in this Intro to Web Dev course. But in our full Lambda course, we do get much deeper into classes because we use them quite often in JavaScript. But this is kind of just a little primer on really what classes do. And the prototype is very important and very interesting to us when we create different classes. So just remember, it's the name of the class, the constructor itself. So vehicle, it's going to be dot prototype, and then the prototype is actually an object. So we can say dot info. So we are going to access that object, and then we are going to give it a key and equal it to a function. And we can do this as many times as we want, right? So if we just say vehicle dot proto all right, we're going to say honk. And then we'll just return. We're going to go dot name honks. And then on Jetta, we're going to go honk. And look at that. We can create as many methods as we want on the prototype. When I said, remember, maybe you're making a user base that has 20 methods per class. We can do 20 on the prototype, and every single class will have access to each one of those in there. And then this will maintain that left of the dot idea. So this is the prototype. Once again, these are some fairly advanced concepts. Just want to give you some a good brush up on it, and just to get you thinking about it and kind of understanding it a little bit more. If you're completely confused and worried that you might not be getting it, that's totally fine. This is a difficult concept to grasp, and all of these things are from now on. But it just takes a lot of work and a lot of repetition. So that's the prototype, and that's our lessons on classes.